Hello, welcome to Revive and Rise. I'm your host, Melody Parrish, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today. We have a special guest with us, Riana Milne, and she is a certified global life and love trauma recovery coach. And she has the podcast Lessons in Life and Love. She's a number one best-selling author with books Love Beyond Your, Love Beyond Your Dreams and Live Beyond Your Dreams. And so I want to thank you, Rihanna, for joining us today. Thank you
Nice.
so much.
I appreciate it.
Yes, and I'm so glad about what we're going to talk about. So if you can just begin, and I'll be more than happy to ask questions as we go.
Sure. Well, where do I start is the big question. I've been in my private practice for counseling called Therapy by the Sea, and then became a global coach internationally with Lessons in Life and Love coaching. And I've been doing this work for over 26 years now. And it originated way back when I was 16 years old, when my very best friend was killed by a drunk driver. And I had asked my mom if I could go to a counselor to help handle the grief. And she said, no one in this family will ever go to a counselor. And in my defiance, I said that I will grow up to become one. And so I always knew that I wanted to help people overcome hard times and challenges. And then when my Penn State girlfriend was murdered by her boyfriend, this was another big loss for me. And I found healing through reading, mindset books and some of the masters back then, Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, and the Course of Miracles. So I learned spirituality, mindset for success, and that was helping me heal the trauma. Moving onward, I knew I wanted to go to get a master's degree, which I did a triple master's in applied clinical and counseling psychology in later years once I grew my daughters. And, I started working out as a typical therapist and said, I really like the coaching model because that model is more educational and it teaches real skills, where counseling is more about processing your feelings. And I started doing research way back to help teens because I became also a SAC counselor, student assistance counselor in schools, whereas I was helping the emotionally upset student, and found that they were coming from a lot of traumatic homes. And in my career as a therapist, I had probably 5 jobs going at one time. So I was working in the schools and I had my own practice at night. And then I worked as a night therapist in a drug and alcohol rehab center, and also worked in a adolescent hospital ward with kids 5 through 19. So all the original trauma seemed to come from childhood. And that's when my research began. And I created what's called the childhood trauma checklist. And I started giving it to my clients in private practice. They're like, oh, this is so easy then for me to understand what happened to me in childhood and how it's impacted me today as an adult. So that was the original research and the work that I did. I came out with a checklist in 2012. And by 2015, I saw another list come out called the ACEs test, which they had 17,000 people as subjects, and how childhood trauma impacts you in 7 life areas. And I found it helpful and fascinating, but I also found it really missed a lot of the things that I saw with trauma, like all the kids that were bullied in school. When I'd work with the LGBTQ, population, they were not loved or accepted or bullied. Kids from the foster care system or kids from adoption who were struggling, the ones with abandonment issues. So yes, I had drug and alcohol on there, but I'm like, well, what about the other 12 addictions? Because I'm an addictions counselor too. So, I'll go through the checklist for you all so that you can see that in 2021, the newer research was showing 100% of us have at least some of these top 10.
Right.
And it just depends. How severe were they? How did they show up? And have you healed or, process them to get beyond them so that you can have more better and quality relationships in your adult life? And it comes down to also success in business. It impacts every life area. So it's really an important part of study, right? Okay. So, Melody, is that good for you that I go through the top 10 traumas?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Very good. All right. So, the first one is, was there any addiction in the family? So, drugs, alcohol, sex, meaning you knew your parent was a cheater, porn use, gambling, hoarding, spending, eating, um, let's see, computer use, workaholism. So those are some of the top, 10 traumas that kids might have experienced in and around addiction. Number two is vocal messages. What messages did you hear from your mom and dad? So were they yelling and fighting a lot in the household? Did you hear the words, I love you and good for you and I'm proud of you? Or did you hear more like verbal put downs, like you should change your outfit, you look fat in that, or you'll never be as good as so and so? These kind of you're not good enough messages are very prevailing and stay with us a very long time. So it really depends what messaging did you have and what did you witness as far as how do you work out a problem in the household. Okay, number three is emotional abuse or neglect. Number four is abandonment. And there's two types I name, fault and no fault. So a no fault abandonment would be if a parent happened to die early, not their fault, and yet it's still a huge abandonment for someone. If their parent traveled a lot, but that's how they supported the family, that was their job. And that one I could relate to because my dad was a CIA, FBI agent. But of course, you can't tell your family. We only knew at the end when we got letters from the head of the FBI and the president. Thank you for his many years of service. Oh, that's where dad was. Oh, okay. So it could be a job related situation. And then there's fault abandonment, where you never knew your child, or you were sporadically there for your child, or even you were in the house but not emotionally attached to your child. You didn't go see their games or their plays at school. You just were not an involved parent. Okay, so abandonment is a big one. Okay, the next one is number six. If you were part of the foster care system, you had to go live at somebody else's house because your mom and dad couldn't take care of you. Even if it was a grandma or an aunt, you still were shuffled off away from your main home. And that's trauma six. Trauma seven is around personal issues. If you did not feel that you fit in as a child, you might have been a little chubby and overweight or skinny and gawky like me. I was called a nerd. I was, considered, not so pretty when I was a young kid. Um, and that impacts you if you're the only African American in all Caucasian schools. So your race or cultural differences could have felt uncomfortable. Even my students who identified ADHD, they felt different in school. So all these you are not the same or you don't measure up type messages are under personal trauma. Number eight is sibling trauma. And that's if you had a sibling bully you, if your sibling was born with a medical condition, so the parents had to step up and help that child more, or they were perceived as you as being the golden child, the favorited one. So more handsome or beautiful or the better student or the better athlete. You were always compared that yours wasn't good enough. Okay, your performance or grades or whatever. Okay, trauma nine, there's two of them. And trauma 11 had to be moved down since I made the list because it wasn't used very much. It was number 11. And now it's one of the top traumas, which is community trauma. So that's our COVID, school shootings, mass shootings, our Mother Nature events, flood, fires, hurricanes that wipe out communities at large. And then that impacts the family, which is the other side of nine. So anything related to the community issues, or if you lived in a dangerous neighborhood with your family, or you moved a lot with your family, they were maybe in the military and you had to move every 2 to 4 years, like the families here in the US, making the child, the new kid in school all the time. You could have had a parent that was incarcerated, or you grew up with poverty and money struggles. So these are just a few of the family issues. And then number 10 is mental health issues in mom or dad. Now I'm part of the baby boomer set. So we did not see our parents go to counseling. So you kind of have to guess, was mom or dad anxious? Were they depressed? The two most difficult ones for children to navigate around is bipolar and borderline personality disorder. So borderline real simply means when you're good, you're great. When you're bad, you're horrid. And you never know what you're going to get, leaving the spouse and the child walking on eggshells all the time. It's this explosive anger over something that should not be a big deal. A very hard personality to stay with, love, or to have as a parent. And then the other one is bipolar, which is manic depressive. And even in depression, it can come up as anger or extreme fatigue. A manic phase, most people think, oh, that's the high and happy one, which it could be, but it usually spirals right into a depressive one. Let's say there's a shopping spree and you're really happy for a couple of weeks with your new things. And then within 30 days, your bills come and you can't pay them. And then you're depressed for 3 months, trying to get out of that financial hole. So these are the top 10 childhood traumas from my research that I named on the childhood trauma checklist.
Oh, nice. Yeah, well, that's a vast list there. But
Yeah.
I'm sure all of our listeners are like you said, we experience one or something, some form of that.
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
now, how does that impact the child?
Well, it impacts you in all areas of life. There's 7 core areas, so I'll go into what those are. Mostly as kids, we just adapt and think this is normal. So that's why most people say, well, I don't have childhood trauma until they hear the list. And it's like, oh, yeah, I've got 5 or I have 4 to 6, whatever it is. And normally they might know my work ahead of time before seeing me. And they say, yeah, I have 4 traumas. And then after I go through the list and get to know them better, there's usually another 2 or 3 that are added because they've normalized the situation so much. And here's an example of that. I had a woman that said, like, when they were bad, they had to go pull a switch from the tree or a tree branch, and that's what they were hit with. And when I questioned her on the checklist, she put no under physical abuse. But she told me this story later in the questioning. I'm like, well, do you realize that's physical abuse? She goes, oh, well, all the kids had that done in my neighborhood. I said, but that still doesn't make it right. And if one of my students had told me that, I would have had to call the Division of Youth and Family Services because that child is being abused, right? So it's really what becomes normalized to the child. And then that stays with you as you become older and then your relationships. So it's your friendships, it's your primary partner, and it's your parent child relationships. This all then intertwines with how successful you are in those relationships. Even your work relationships are impacted. So let's go into the 7 life areas where this impacts. Okay. So the first one is under physical health. So items like sleep disorders, eating disorders, poor immune functions, or irritable bowel syndrome, chronic fatigue, um, cardiovascular diseases, even. And they have proven there's a shorter lifespan if you do not heal these original traumas. Under emotional, that's number 2. So you have difficulty really regulating your emotions and controlling them, and even recognizing other people's emotions, like having empathy for people. You might have limited coping skills. You get frustrated really easy and fly off the handle. You're very sensitive to stress and it can stay with you a long time. You can adapt a lot of shame and guilt over things that other people can just let go. Excessive worry, feeling of hopelessness, feeling of helplessness, and lack of self esteem. So there's a lot under emotions, as you can see. The third area is in your relationships. So there's usually attachment problems, low trust, codependency, love addiction, poor understanding of social interactions, intergenerational cycles of abuse and neglect. So childhood trauma goes through at least 3 generations, right? And until you get healed, when I have a client in front of me, if they have children, I do teach the parents what to do and say with their children to help heal their trauma because many of the singles I work with, they went through traumatic divorces and relationships or had an abusive partner. So not only do I have to heal mom's trauma or dad's, but also the child's and help them to recommunicate and connect again. So anything attracting that toxic narcissistic partner over and over again, this is what we call RRS, relationship repetition syndrome. So you might have a breakup of the toxic person finally, and then you say, all right, I'm going to read 300 self-help books and I swear I'm going to get it different this time. And then you attract the same kind of person all over again. And that's what we call RRS. Or it's also the pattern of breaking up and going back to the same person. And the research shows it's an average of about 7 times before the more healthier person says, that's it, I am done, and can really walk away. But usually it takes some really great trauma recovery coaching to give you that strength. And that's what I work on with my clients. Okay, then under mental health, this is where anxiety and depression originated from the very beginning. So people that are often taking psychotropic medication, it's a band-aid. You've never dealt with the underlying issues. So I am very much into holistic health, and there's some wonderful vitamins that can help you with anxiety and depression. You get off the meds and you start really working on the issues, and people find that anxiety and depression really doesn't really exist that much anymore for them. Negative self-image, self-esteem, PTSD. These are just some things under mental health. The next category is under behavior issues, and we call these the toxic or dysfunctional behavioral patterns that become just habits to people, like false negative assumptions that your partner's doing something wrong. You swear it's true, but you have no facts on that, you know. Social withdrawal, aggression, shyness, feeling lonely, poor self-regulation, meaning you can't calm yourself down when you are upset, poor impulse control. Um, Couples that see me, when one partner has poor impulse, these tend to be the cheaters. You know, they just go with what they want. They think they want it and they think they deserve it. And they don't even think about, well, if this is going to happen, this is going to hurt my partner in my relationship. Impulse rules their decision, not the conscious moral value of I shouldn't cheat, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so risk taking, illegal behavior, this is all under that category. Sexually acting out. Now, this can even mean women who use sex to get love. And that is a huge, huge situation going on in our dating world today. And those single women turn to me and say, why can't I find a great partner? And they're intimate within 3 dates. It's ridiculous. You barely know this person. So we are taking all impulse decisions out and making all their decision consciously. And we
Yeah.
call that conscious dating. Okay, now the two areas for children, one is under brain development. So if a mom is pregnant and under a lot of stress, very often the baby has a smaller brain size. They have less efficiency in processing and learning. They have the impaired startle or stress response, making it a very cranky baby. And then they even showed the research change in gene expression. So offspring from those people that suffered in the camps from the Holocaust, their gene pool down the line has shown very, very high anxiety. Yeah. So very interesting work. And then the other last one for children's cognition, but this also impacts adults too. For kids, impaired readiness to learn. Again, not absorbing their facts, struggling to learn, difficult problem solving, language delays, problems with concentration, and poor academic achievement. Within the adults, it's just foggy brain, can't focus, can't settle down, couldn't work on a project before they have to go and do something else. So it's this constant stress going on and inability to really focus well. So those are some of the 7 life areas with a couple of examples in each area.
Oh, wow. That's really a lot. It gets really deep into this, huh?
Yeah, it really does. And then one of the questions I often get asked is, okay, so how's it show up in love and my dating relationships? Like, go deeper on that one.
Yeah.
So I can give you a few examples. If you have a partner that's jealous and controlling, this comes back to trauma number 2 and 7. Trauma number 2, again, is those verbal messages: you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, this enough, that enough. And trouble at 7 was didn't feeling for yourself that you fit in, that you weren't good enough. So those in combination are a real hot button. And this is where jealousy and control comes from. And your partner really could try and do everything to give you this peace that everything is fine and no, I'm loyal to you and everything is great. But they had those issues as kids, they need that trauma healed to heal that. Now, if there was a lot of abandonment in your life, this leads to clinginess, anxiety when your partner's gone, thinking that they're cheating or reaching out for other attention from other people. Codependency and love addiction fall to people who have abandonment issues. Anger issues, yelling and acting out, or the other shutting down and punishing your partner with silence, which we call passive aggressive.
Yeah.
um, when you're afraid or you don't get your way, that's a common pattern that people grow up with. So they carry it forward. Doesn't mean it's healthy. We got to break all these bad habits. Very often, addiction comes from trying to cope early on as a teenager from what's going on in the home. So starting to smoke early, drink early, use pot early just to stress and escape the going ons in your household. But the earlier someone starts with substance, the more prone they are to addiction. So, not all addictions come from childhood, of course, but many of them do. Cheap drama. Cheap drama is all this yelling, fighting in the relationship, and I'm mad at you, and shutting down, and can't communicate. We get rid of all that cheap drama to create a very safe and loving, calm, and kind relationship. And then the fun drama is like going on a great vacation or going out dancing or having romance with your partner. That's good drama. Cheap drama, we don't want that. Okay. So we get rid of all the cheap drama. Perfectionism and blaming behavior, never being able to apologize or say you're sorry. Um, and very many of our actors, models, singers have imposter syndrome. They work really hard. I know because I used to be a model and talent agent to get where they were. Nothing is handed to them in that industry. But then once they get it, they sabotage it. They're afraid they're not good enough. It's never good enough. And that's where workaholism comes from as well. So, there's many famous examples of this. I recently saw a movie on Quincy Jones, his biography. And the last question he asked, and they said, well, you're so successful in business and production and helping young people become artists. And he had a very accomplished career. And they said, is there anything you didn't do well in? He goes, yeah, my relationships. And his story was he was very poor growing up. He had to go off to live with a grandmother. They lived in poverty. He said she had to catch rats, and that's what they ate. So, you start adding up the traumas that I mentioned, and this poor young man grew up with almost all of them, right? Abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, had to go out to work, at 12 years old to make any kind of money for their family. So there's a lot of stories of very famous people. I mean, Oprah's another one, suffered incredible childhood trauma, but overcame it to become quite a established person that helps many, many people. So, this is not meaning you're broken or there's a curse on your life, but it does mean you need to know how to process it and heal it and turn it from a bad into a good and to do good with it in your life. Yeah,
Yes, yes. I really like that. Thank you for saying that it's not that you're broken or that you need to, there's something wrong with you, because that's so important for people to understand.
that's right.
Can you talk more about how we were saying that how people normalize things to
Mhm.
where they don't really understand. I know I went to college with a girl, and when we actually got into college was when she started to understand that maybe her home life was not normal,
Mhm.
and it really opened her up to, oh wow, this isn't the way it should be. This is,
Yeah.
her mom even told her that, the worse and the more angry and mean she was to her was the more she loved her.
That's sad. Yeah.
Yeah,
So she equates love with pain and being
right.
emotionally and physically abused, and that's what happens very often. Yeah, it's very sad. I happen to be watching this series, Nashville. I guess I'm a late viewer to the series where, the lead singers, two of them had very abusive mothers, and it's like same messages. Well, I do this because I love you, and it really is taxing on their life and on their relationships and how they deal with stress. It's once you know this work, you see it in the movies and in people's stories of their lives all the time. And a lot of people normalize it due to shame and guilt. But again, you were a child, you're an innocent party. None of this is your fault. This is a family dynamic you had absolutely no control over. So as an older person, we do all kinds of trauma recovery skills to help you understand what went on in the family and how you can forgive it. And here's an example of that. Like my mom was a very tough German lady. And I was 4 out of 5 kids. And she
Mhm.
had told me that I kind of ruined her dream for the 2 girl, 2 boy family because I had 2 sisters, one brother, and then I was supposed to be a boy. And geez, I wasn't. So she had to go back and try again, darn it, to have her second boy. So that's a tough message to hear. But she was not a woman that was warm and fuzzy or said the words, I love you. So, of her 5 kids, I was the first one to have her grandchild. And as I was pregnant, I said, Mom, I'm going to ask you a question. Why didn't you ever tell us kids that you loved us? And, right away she gets offended. And she goes, Well, I did. I said, Of course we know you did, how hard you worked, and dad was never around, and you had to do everything for us 5 kids. That must have been very hard and stressful for you. So I gave her a lot of love and compassion in my words. And my words were not defensive, even if she was. I was very calm and kind about it. And I said, Well, why didn't you say the word? She goes, Well, those aren't words I ever heard. And I said, Well, I knew grandma was tough. She goes, Well, no, we grew up in the Great Depression. We had food on the table. That was love. So now I can understand. Okay, she didn't hear it. She didn't know that. And in her way, food was love. So she always made sure we had food, and drove us to where we had to go. But the other emotional part, she never had that. So how would she know how to give that? So then I gave her the compassion and said, Well, Mom, I'm really sorry. I'm going to start saying those words to you. So you start feeling comfortable with them. So by the time the baby's here, you can tell the little baby that too. And that's really what happened. And I was 24 years old the first time I heard I love you too back. And I like dropped the phone. I'm like, finally, you know, my mom was able to say the words. And she became a much more loving and kind woman as we all got older, was able to say the words and show her emotions. And actually, I even encouraged her to divorce. I said, I love dad, but you have no relationship here. You're lonely. Of course you're angry and upset. You deserve someone better, Mom. And she actually found a really nice man and remarried. And with that, she really had all her loving emotions evolved in that relationship. And she was quite aware of the work that I did. And I think one of my first verbal compliments was my book, Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free of Toxic Relationships to Have the Love You Deserve. She goes, I read it cover to cover and it was really good. I'm like, wow, geez, thanks, Mom. It's like, I was so shocked I got a compliment. Um,
Mhm.
so, yeah, I wrote that within 6 months. It's 400 pages. It was the #1 bestseller on Amazon when it came out in the Barnes and Noble stores. So she was really proud. I was in the big bookstore. So there you go. And the workaholism in my family and siblings was equated to if we work hard and get good grades, we get love.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so that's where workaholism comes in, or, to prove you're good enough. Like if I get these good grades, they'll love me today, or they'll calm down and they'll be happy. Right. So everybody that shares their stories with me, and every story is different. They're really amazed with a life and love transformation session, which I take 2 hours of personal and private time with anyone that signs up for that. We really get to the root of the issues, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's so clear." Like one of my ladies says, "I was in 7 years of therapy and heard none of this."
Mhm.
And I'm also a therapist, but this is why I love the coaching model, because it's educational and it really evokes real change and personal transformation. And that's why it's such an incredible journey when I work with clients to heal childhood and love trauma. And then our slogan is to create the life you desire and have the love you deserve. And that's how it happens. Heals the trauma. What are your goals and dreams for you and your life? Let's get those lined up and going. And once that happens, the self esteem goes up. Get the dating information that nobody ever taught us, which I call the art and psychology of dating successfully. And then they go out and find an amazing ideal partner. And that's the journey over 4 to 6 months that my clients take with me.
4 to 6 months. Wow.
Yeah.
That's that's so interesting. I love that you talk about how different things are because so many people wanna box things into, "Oh, if you have this, then it's this." And
Hmm.
and I like that you talk about how things are different. I hear stories, every story is different.
Yes. Yes. And it's the combination. And then also, if they say, well, I had some physical abuse, I was beaten. Well, there's a 1 to 10 scale. Every day after school by the alcoholic father is a 10. Remembering you got hit by about twice. I'm like, how hard was that for you? It's like, well, I wasn't happy about it. I would put that as a 3, you know. So that's another thing that I have to find out. What was the severity level within them? And, it's funny because I work with parents and they're like, well, we got hit by a belt, so I do it too. I said, do you realize you could get a visit from DIFUS? This is in the schools identified as physical abuse. Like, oh, well, I wouldn't have thought that, and they meant that. They didn't feel it was physical abuse just because I grew up with it. That was their normal. So we have to
Right.
change what the normal was, and the word discipline is from the Bible. It means to teach. As a parent, we are to be teaching our children the right way. They're not supposed to, quote, know better. They don't come into their adult brains until 23 for a woman and 26 as a man. So they are always needing to learn, and they learn by your example and sitting down and telling them a better way, right? So there's so much parental education I do as well as part of this system. So we look at the whole life that you're involved with. And that's where the life coaching hat comes in, and then trauma recovery. And then the third piece I do is mindset. So I'm certified and licensed in all these areas. And then I have the mental health license. So I'm healing the mental health and also teaching all these other ways to, you know, um, feel great about yourself, raise your self esteem, feel happy and peaceful in life. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So when you talk about mindset, can you tell the listeners what that means? Because I know we have a lot of stress right now, and so
Mhm.
mindset is very important.
Yes, it sure is. I do mindset work with everyone. Most people have not studied mindset work. Probably about 6 to 8% of the population live a conscious life. That means thinking before you do, talk, speak, write, text, everything you do, you have a pause and your mind is thinking, is this good for me and the other person, the group, the student, whatever the other is, right? So I'll teach one mindset lesson before I go. So I teach this through using the yin yang symbol from Buddhism, which is also a phenomenal study. And if people know it, it's a round circle and with two paisleys in it. One is a white paisley with a black dot. The other is a black paisley with a white dot. If we're showing this tape, I'm showing a picture of it. Okay. So the white paisley is what we call living in the light. And we put this on the right side of this is living right? So that's why it's chosen on the right side. And it is joy and peace and happiness and passion and love of work and great friends and everything that makes you feel good and happy and joyful is living in the light. It also includes spirituality. It's a big part of healing. The little black dot represents to us, Buddhism talks about when we're living this human life, this is the earth school. And we're here to learn many lessons. So we are supposed to be challenged. So the black dot is challenges that come up. But we have so many skills and light that we just say, oh, okay, so what can I do with that? And here's an example. In America, when COVID, our government says you have to stay in for 30 days. Well, I would tell you like 97% of the people are freaking out. I can't go to work. I can't buy groceries. I can't do this. I can't do that. Everyone's freaking out. Kids are home from school. It was an emotional disaster, right? My first thought is, wow, I have 30 days. I don't have to go out. What can I do and get done? Well, I have 2 books on my list I wanted to write. So I wrote 200-page plus books, Happiness Beyond Your Dreams and Anxiety Free Living and Loving. So I right away went to the positive. Okay, so this is happening. What can I do with that? And that's how we learn to think. We don't jump into that poor me victim mentality. That is what we call on the dark side. So the dark side is the dark paisley with the white dot. So what's on the dark side? Anger, jealousy, control, rape, murder, addiction, anything that makes you feel bad, lousy, abuse, abusive relationships, anything that keeps you ruminating in this fear-based negative thinking. That's the dark side. It makes you feel horrible. Okay. And it's very pervasive. But I describe it like a tornado. It starts small and then it's bigger, 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 and it consumes your life, the dark side. Okay. So that's what's there. We don't want to live there. We want to live in the light. So the white circle reminds you at any time using mindset work, you can go through and come back up into the light. So all the trauma recovery tools I use teach them to do that. So for our listeners, if they're at home and they want to do a little exercise with us, put a little T on your paper, line across and then a line down the center. And on the left side, you put living in the dark side. And on the right side, you put living in the light. So let's go over what are the differences so you can see more clearly what I'm talking about. So living in the light, we are proactive. We take action. Okay, we don't ruminate and think and think and think and nothing ever gets done. We are action takers. On the left side, though, they're reactions, lashing out, anger, fast responses, impulse. That's on the dark side. Reactive versus proactive. Okay. Second is conscious choices are made in the light, as I described before. In the dark side, they unconsciously act out. They don't think before they do. They just go by their emotions and usually people end up getting hurt, including themselves. The third one down, we are educated with mindset tools and we use them all day, every day. It becomes our new normal. They are uneducated on mindset, so don't use them. And this is why their life is very often in disrupt kind of stages. In the light, we have positive love-based thoughts. In the dark side, it's negative fear-based thoughts. In the light, we ask, what can I do? And we seek answers to that question. It may not come right away, but we meditate, we think about it, and then we take action. In the dark side, it's right away, I can't do that. It won't work for me. I'm not spending my money on that because thousands had success, but it won't work for me. This is that giving up before you try attitude, right? I just can't do it. It's that victim mentality, we call it. Again, very pervasive, right? It impacts all areas of your life. In the light, we have hope, spiritual faith, and trust that God's got us. And in the dark side, that's where anxiety and depression lie, and that's what consumes your thoughts and your lifestyle. The light, we say yes to ourselves and opportunities, and one opportunity always goes to another and goes to another. On the dark side, you feel stuck, you say no to most opportunities, and therefore you're not growing, you're not learning, you feel stuck, you're bored with life. And then the last one, we're constantly usually moving forward into our future. We set goals, we define the goals, and we're always moving towards those goals. And in the dark side, your rumination is over the past and you stay stuck in the past.
Wow, wow.
That makes more sense. So that's just one little lesson out of our 150-page workbook that our clients learn and then they start practicing.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, I really like that, and actually going and seeing and looking and understanding, it makes such a difference.
It
Um,
does.
you're talking about your workbook. Is there a way that our listeners can get your workbook, or do they need to go through you?
Yeah, that's part of their coaching program. They do the workbook with me. And as coaching, I always define it, it's a team. We work together. So, what they answer in their workbook, I review, and then I know what to teach them. So it's done as part of their investment in coaching. That's when they get that. But my books, Love Beyond Your Dreams, which is about emotionally healthy relationships and avoiding toxic ones, and then the book Live Beyond Your Dreams, From Fear and Doubt to Personal Power, Purpose, and Success, is all about the mindset for success. So they're on Amazon and anywhere else you can buy books. But they're called sister books. They're meant to go together. Because when you have a great mindset, you could still attract the wrong partner. Or you have, the toxic partner, and then your mindset is upset. So my clients do read both of them as part of their curriculum, along
Oh,
with the workbook.
oh,
But
I see.
yeah, then there's 50 other pieces of curriculum that they get over 4 to 6 months. So it's an intensive program. It's not what I call a fluff course. They sign up because they really, really want change in their life.
Right. Well, most change and transformation take lots of work, right?
Well, we call it work just because it's a common word. But within 2 weeks, my clients start seeing changes already. We start right away with holistic health and vitamin therapy, and their depression drops within 2 weeks, and their anxiety is almost gone. They're learning meditation, they learn other things to help the brain and the body first. Because again, we handle the trauma piece first, right? So we have to handle the physical, the brain and the body. And then they start learning the techniques and they practice these things over 4 to 6 months, which again, they're starting to drop the old toxic belief system and behaviors that don't serve them as they are practicing the new ones. And in all the research I've done in trauma, it's usually 6 good months of doing this intensive type of work that changes you, but then you're changed for life.
Yeah.
You'll never go back. Like everyone says, I can't believe I was that person when I signed up. Like, oh my God, look who I am now. I love who I am now. Even my men who have signed up with anger issues and control and jealousy, once they understand where it's all coming from and that they can change it, they're excited, right? So the work is just the process.
Oh, right, right. That's awesome. So if our listeners want to access you, you've said about your books, but
Yeah.
how do they access you?
Okay. Although I may be internationally known, and written up in all these magazines. I'm very small town service. So they can email me, Riana Milne at Gmail. The best thing to do is go on my website, rianamilne.com. And right on the homepage is an orange button that takes them to the Life and Love Transformation Discovery Session. Because really, for me to do a really good assessment, it takes me an hour and a half, and then I give 30 minutes to answer your questions. So I like to take my time and really get to know the client in front of me. This is not a rushed 15-minute, okay, this is what I do to help you, because I really want to know the history. So they do 5 simple assessments with me for 2 hours, and then we create the roadmap of what the plan will be and what they want to work on. And then we move forward from that. But on my website, there's a lot of free things that they'll enjoy. There's a new ebook that just came out yesterday that I'm uploading like within the next couple of days. There's another one right on the homepage. I have free book chapter downloads to live and love books, blogs, and the childhood trauma checklist, along with 3 other quizzes you can take, are for free, and you will get machine answers from me, but machine answers that'll give you a lot more. Like there's a red flag checklist. Some people are like, well, am I in a toxic relationship? I don't think so, but there's some signs. Do the red flag checklist. Okay, that's in there. Then you'll know. And then we have something to discuss on your discovery session. And then, of course, my podcast, I have 126 shows out, Lessons in Life and Love. That is free. So anyone can listen to that. I think I have over 350 audios and videos on my YouTube channel, Riana Milne. So, yeah, you can find me almost anywhere. Just
Oh,
Google.
you
You'll find.
anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'll make sure to have all of those links in the comments as
Okay.
well,
All right.
that people can access you. Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful for our listeners today.
yeah, Rihanna, we so appreciate you because this was like a wealth of knowledge for us.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what I try to do. I try to teach the coaching model. I'm a teacher, right?
Yeah.
So, and that education is power, knowledge is power, and you can't change what you don't know or understand. So I just want to encourage my listeners, like take that action, man. Today is the day to create the life you desire and have the love you deserve. Don't wait, because you're worth it.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Rihanna.
Thanks for having me, Melody.
All right. And just remember, everyone, you do not have to suffer alone.